Hey everyone, welcome to the Meme Team podcast, where we talk about the logic behind virality, because marketing isn't just logic, it's culture, and our podcast decodes both. This week we're welcoming Kushan Shah, who does lifestyle marketing at Superhuman, which is formerly Grammarly. And to start it off, we just want to know, how's that going? How's the rebrand going?
Amazing. So I know a lot of people out there are fans of Grammarly. You've likely known Grammarly as kind of the little writing assistant that follows you around the screen and helps give you writing suggestions. We've kind of really expanded our portfolio. So we've added Coda as well as Superhuman Mail, which I know a lot of people have used for their email.
I
And we're
use it.
basically, you use Superhuman Mail? Amazing. Yes, we're basically trying to create what is a end-to-end productivity suite. And so what we're really trying to do is bring that technology of how you can integrate into an app, digest that information, and kind of have something that follows you around and really is a little bit more of your assistant than just your proofreader, so to speak. So our CEO calls it a super highway, but we're really kind of excited to see where it goes. And then the rebrand is really just honoring the fact that we're no longer just a grammar company. We have all of these different things, and our mission is to make you super productive, aka superhuman.
To feel superhuman. Yeah, no, that was like one of the things I liked about it. But like when Grammarly first bought Superhuman, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, why would they do that? Why would either company, do that? But now with the rebrand and then buying Coda and kind of shifting more to the productivity side of things, the whole umbrella makes more sense. So I was quite like, both like surprised, but then like, oh, this is actually an awesome rebrand, because the name Grammarly is so limiting. Whereas
Exactly.
Superhuman, there's so much more that you could do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one promotion I'll do is if anyone wants to learn more, you can go to the superhuman.com website, and it has all of the updated information on just how you can experience all of the bundled products together, if you'd like.
Ever the marketer. Awesome. Well, cool. I just wanted to talk about Shopify on TBBPN, which I thought was like such a cool way to kind of promote their own stores. I talked last week about how Harvey Finkelstein, the president of Shopify, had done a tweet where he's trying to engage with people to tell him their favorite stores or like actual merchants to post their store so that customers can buy from it. And then when this happened, I was like, whoa, they're really like going full in on like trying to involve people on like shopping on like one of the biggest days of the year. But then doing it in such a way that made it less about Shopify and then more about like the actual merchants that are on the platform. So I caught a few of the ones that, showed up. Sarah Foster of Favorite Daughter. That's one of my newest favorite brands. There was like the CEO of Ridge, Sean Frank, and Noel Mack, the brand officer of Gymshark. I thought it was just like a cool way of, introducing more people to more brands that sell directly to consumers.
Absolutely. And I think the really exciting thing about TBPN too, it's obviously taken the entire tech world by storm, but it's almost a status symbol in its own way of culture. Like if you are a really strong brand and you are doing something where you really want to get the voice out, just even being on TBPN, it's kind of the equivalent of 10, 15 years ago being in a TechCrunch or something like that. So I think it's also really cool to see the window shift around traditional media. A lot of people prefer to do something like this. They can be more in control of their own narrative, but then just even being associated with TBPN, the brand, gives you a lot of a brand halo that you might otherwise not get just through normal marketing.
Oh, I'm actually sort of surprised that we haven't seen more of this yet, right? Because it looks like they have some kind of partnership. So, which makes me think that I'm guessing Shopify paid for the ad slot.
Yeah, I think it'd be a little bit of where TBPN wants to keep the integrity of like the journalism, going. So you don't just feel as if I'm just getting ads when I want to listen to the news about what's happening. What worked for me for this was like, okay, it's clearly for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It's like purely going to be about that. But then you also got to talk directly to like the, co-founders, the presidents, the, CEOs of the company, and hear more of their story. And it wasn't just a full-on sales pitch the whole time. So I do think it's an interesting way of doing it, but I won't be surprised if they do it more, right? I do wonder if it's going to remain under the host or if it's going to be like they hire, other people to focus, more on this kind of like e-commerce stuff. Cause, much like regular news, right? Like keeping that journalistic integrity versus like the sponsored content. Like,
And it's interesting too, because I feel like a lot of people are trying to do what TBPN does. And I don't feel like the magic is really in just, hey, you're reading tech news out on a stream for an hour
mhm,
a day, or you're just creating a podcast. So I think there is some level of just mystery or aura that's connected to the fact that it's being
mhm.
hosted by them right now. So it would be interesting to see if it's by itself just a good distribution engine or really just reliant on who's hosting it today.
Yeah. The other thing too is the ramp experiential marketing thing that happened in New York. Like that was also sponsored on like TBPN, and
Yeah.
TBPN had like the live stream of it and was like talking to Brian Baumgartner, CFO for the day. So I think that was kind of like an inch in that direction where it's like they have like their sponsors and like they're putting, deals together for like their sponsors. So maybe that was like the start of it. And now they're, doing this. So we'll see, yeah, kind of what sort of ways there are to like do this going forward without feeling cringy. Oh, I wanted to tell you, Amanda, that the CMO of Figs was on the broadcast for
It's
TBPN.
fun
Yeah, yeah,
for the
yeah.
shop part of the Shopify
Uh-huh. Yeah,
partnership.
yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's pretty cool that
Was he wearing a tux?
I know, right? Too funny. Shopify also did a promotion on the Las Vegas Sphere. You wanna tell us about that, Kushan?
Yeah, I thought this was really fascinating. Number one, I feel like Shopify has a very hard job trying to outdo itself every year on Black Friday.
Hmm.
They know that they're under the radar. They have to do something new. This year, apparently, it had been announced that it was about 2 years in the works. They got their traditional dashboard, which they started building a couple years back. It's a view of the globe, and they show Shopify interactions in real life as they're happening on Black Friday. They got that broadcasted onto the Las Vegas Sphere, which is
Hmm.
fantastic. The Sphere is the concert
Yeah.
venue where you basically have the 360-degree view. So the Sphere has done ads, I think, for the entire time it's been alive. It's
Hmm.
broadcast its concerts, also done more billboards, and
Sure. I mean, Formula One does it
yep.
whenever, the Grand Prix is in Las Vegas, the Baseball World Series one.
This is one of the first ones where they were broadcasting it in real time. So they were trying to
Mm.
take the same formula that they used for Twitter, putting it on the Sphere itself. So I just thought it was really fascinating. Definitely a good example of creative marketing. I would love to hear both your thoughts, though, on do we feel like do you feel like if people were unfamiliar with Shopify or unfamiliar with Black Friday, this did much? Was it just kind of like a cool flash in the pan?
Yeah, I feel like coupled with everything that they've been doing, it kind of like works. I like that they're taking ownership of like Black Friday and Cyber Mondays, right? Because I feel like it's been such an Amazon thing for so long that like, even within Amazon, that feels like it's not even a thing, right? Because now they have Prime Day, right? So they have sales throughout the year that have, for me, kind of move them away from Black Friday being like a main focus. So I like that Shopify, that's like the new like startup that's kind of like trying to compete with them, is trying to take ownership of the whole like, weekend, I guess, because it's from Friday through like Monday. I feel like it wasn't until this year that I've seen this much marketing coming from Shopify. Before it's kind of just seemed like they've built like the ecosystem of like how people can buy, direct from businesses, right? So I'm starting to see a lot more businesses use Shopify online, but I hadn't really paid too much attention to like their ads. And then this is the first time that's like, oh, they're kind of blanketing, everything everything. So I wonder if like this was for them, like let's go all in on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, in order to bring as much attention not just to us, but to the merchants that are selling, in order to like drum up business, especially since like this year, everybody's been talking about how poorly the economy has been doing and whether or not people would actually be shopping. We'll talk about that later, courtesy of Amanda. But I think that that's been like a huge thing of like, okay, let's try to, spend as much money to get people to shop and like buy things as much as possible, and then see where they land.
On that note, I mean, I do think that the Sphere activation is really interesting. And by the way, if you guys have you guys ever been to the Sphere? Have you been yet?
I
No.
really want to go to the Backstreet Boys are doing the reunion tour this year.
No, I
I really want to
really
go to
wanted
that.
to go. It's cool. It's a really cool venue. Like if you
Yeah.
ever have the opportunity to go, even if you're in Vegas for work, whatever, it is worth a trip to check it out because it's very cool. Like they have I think right now they're doing the Wizard of Oz there.
Yeah. So my in-laws
So
were
which
just there
Oh,
and they're like,
sweet.
it was
Oh, did they do it?
amazing. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so
They're like,
cool.
it's so crazy how you see the whole movie. Cause I mean, they've used AI to kind of fill in like the rest of it. So it's like 360 degrees.
Oh,
But
interesting. Yeah.
my mother-in-law is like, actually, you could barely even tell. It just all seemed like it was part of like the movie, which is wild to
Yeah.
think about.
It is, and it's just very cool, and, like, because of the 360 view, there isn't really a bad seat in the house. So
Hmm.
that's also something that's really cool about it is that it doesn't feel like if you didn't get front row seats, you're not at a disadvantage. It feels like everyone gets a good experience. But, on that note of shopping, I guess I would have to go back and check some of the stats that Shopify was sharing on it, because I do think it's interesting that Black Friday, Cyber Monday is poised to break records. Like, people are shopping a lot. Adobe Analytics estimated that US shoppers will spend like $14.2 billion yesterday, which is over 6% more than the previous year. And the National Retail Federation estimates that US shoppers will spend more than $1 trillion for the first time this year. So it's wild how people are spending a lot of money. The other thing of note is that more people are turning to buy now, pay later plans, right? Which
Yeah.
allows you to, you know, buy now and pay later without incurring the interest rate. Where, usually if you're on like a 1 year or 2 year plan, you just have those monthly installments and you don't have to pay the interest, which is pretty solid. I do that sometimes. Like, I know some people are like, why don't you just pay it for it up front because you don't have to think about it? I'm kind of like, well, why would I pay it front when I don't have to?
Yeah, I think part of the thing though is because I saw a tweet today about
Yeah.
that where somebody was talking about the BNPL and how like that's become like the main way that people are shopping these days.
Uh,
But I mean the stats that he quoted were kind of crazy. He's
yeah.
basically saying that roughly 1 billion was spent on using BNPL models, which is the worst kind
Wow.
of debt. And then so
Wait, what do you mean the worst
95%.
kind of can you say more about that?
The
What do you
worst
mean
kind of
worst
debt
kind
is
of
just
debt?
like, people are not actually paying it off. So you're doing it. Yeah, you're doing it great because it's like, oh, you're just paying it off. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that aren't paying it off,
Uh,
and the interest rates on that is like higher than with credit cards.
yeah.
So he was saying that 95% of sales volume was financed this time around, which is kind of wild.
That is wild. Yeah.
Yeah. And then 67% of that, of those people don't intend to pay within the 30 days that the, buy
Or
now,
what
pay later model works.
or whatever the
Um,
terms are.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that's going to be a lot of people defaulting or paying the interest for these purchases that they made. So that's kind of like worrying overall, just in
Yeah.
terms of like the economy, because like
Yeah.
that's not the way it's supposed to be,
Yeah,
right?
I'm so glad you brought that up because I
Hmm.
had something else to say here, but that rounds it up really nicely.
Hmm.
Because on that note, too, um, US credit scores are worse now.
Hmm.
So that
Yeah.
definitely aligns with what you said. The average score is dropping for the first time in a decade, and it's a decline that we haven't seen since it's the largest decline since the Great Recession. They think it's because of things like high interest rates, inflation, the restart of federal student loan payments. Most people are doing buy now, pay later. More than half of people don't plan on paying it off. It's almost like people are just really tapping into YOLO. They're just like, "Whatever, I got one
Yeah.
life. Just gonna get
Mhm.
what I want."
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
wild.
I mean, that's kind of crazy because then it's just like, well, that means that credit scores are gonna continue going down. But then if you think about it, what's the biggest thing that you need the credit score for, right? It's to buy a house.
To
It's
buy
to
a
get
house,
Yeah.
a,
which is
buy a new
probably
car,
happening
right?
later
Which is,
and later now too.
exactly. So it's like if I'm not
Yeah.
buying a house and I'm not gonna be buying a car, then like what do I need my credit score for? Which is wild to
Yeah.
think about, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah. Which I think shows a lot about where younger generations are. But obviously, this wasn't broken down in terms of age demographics. But I would assume just because Klarna and like buy now pay later is a new type of service. I doubt that many boomers are using that.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, credit cards, it's a similar deal, right? You get 30 days to pay that off. So I don't necessarily like ragging on like people using buy now pay later because it's like
Sure.
it's just like a credit card. It's just a
Yeah.
different type of service. But what is worrying is that people don't intend to pay it back and like what that then
Yeah.
means for their financial situation going forward.
But yeah,
Another
absolutely.
another point that you'd brought up was also this whole concept of the shift from buying on the computer to buying on mobile, and I think that symptomatically impacts a lot of this. People are shopping more just
Yeah.
because you can now shop basically more hours of the day if you don't have to be at your computer.
Yeah.
I do a lot of my shopping, like if I'm up really early in the morning and can't
Yeah.
go back to
Mm,
sleep,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll be on my phone. And so I think that also, we're seeing that generationally shift, but the mode of shopping shifting is allowing that shopping to be higher. And then if you're also thinking about the level of information or how much you're digesting when you're shopping on mobile versus a laptop, you're not going to have a lot of stuff next to you to cross check. So it's not
Yeah.
to say that everyone is
No,
shopping recklessly, but I think it's definitely
I mean, it's
empowering
easier
more
than
people
ever,
to shop
right?
more.
yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're
yeah.
just on mobile, you're on Instagram, they give you a particularly good ad and you're just like, "Oh, I'll just, I'll just buy this, really quick." One of the things that is funny as you're talking about this is the whole idea of having like this is a desktop purchase versus this is a mobile purchase, right? Where it's like if it's a
Mhm.
really big purchase like plane tickets, people are like, "Oh no, this is a desktop purchase. I need to like actually sit there in front of my computer and type out my,
Yeah.
credit card." But I'm
Yeah.
sure it's gotten way easier with Shopify, like, keeping your card saved and like your login is super easy these days, right? Like all you do is, log in and then boom, boom, it's all signed.
Right.
It's way too easy to be
Right. Well,
shopping
not e
these
not
days.
even not even just Shopify though, right? Google
No, no,
Pay, Apple
totally.
Pay,
Hmm.
people having the Amazon app on their phones. I
Hmm.
mean, 5 years ago, right, most people were buying on desktop. This year, it's mostly on mobile, which, to Kushan's point about, like, yeah, there are more available hours in the day to shop,
Hmm.
but it also lends itself very well to impulse shopping,
Yeah.
or even just that it's also an impulse, but, like, even very pain point oriented shopping, right?
Hmm.
You're doing something at home or at work, and you're like, "Oh, I really need some new clogs," right? Like, "I
Hmm.
stepped in the mud, I'm just gonna order them right now." And, like, something like that, you just whip out your phone, do it real quick, like, great, the errand is done. Like,
Hmm.
it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
The other layer is the amount of impulse shopping that comes from specific applications. Like I know for myself, Instagram ads are my worst enemy when it comes to impulse shopping because 80% of the things that come out of those ads are not things that I'm actively thinking about. But then I'll get an ad and I'll be like, oh yeah, of course I need what was the most recent thing I bought? It was like Santa and Mrs. Claus. It was a nightlight type thing. Like I don't even need a nightlight, but I was like, oh, this is so cute.
It's
I'm
for your
gonna I'm
future
gonna need this
children,
for,
right?
yeah,
You
like
need
Christmas 2 years
it.
from now. Absolute waste of money.
No,
But hey,
absolutely.
Instagram convinced me that I would be happier with that. So
Yeah, yeah.
Same. I
we're
fall
on
for the
there.
Instagram ad. My one of my favorite examples of this are around, like, August or so, I start getting the Instagram ads for that, reusable stamp that you can use to label your children's clothing.
You're going back to school.
Yeah, going back to school, you're gonna need this, and, like, I do I have one? Yes, I have one. But it's also the kind of thing that you look at it, you're like, "Oh, it's $20. I'll just get it. It's
Mm.
fine. It's gonna be useful." It's not that useful.
That's funny. Yeah, one other thing too that I saw that people were saying that one of the biggest reasons why this Black Friday was like one of the highest shopping days ever is that people saved up all the things that they knew they had to buy and
Mm.
waited until it would go on sale. So much of the purchasing that would have happened in like the summer or spring, people just held off until Black Friday in order to try to get deals. But then that also brings up the question of like, were these actually sales? I saw a lot of people complaining about the price fixing that was happening.
Mm.
Which I think is another thing that like marketers need to like think about. Like customers have become wise to these types of tactics. And if you're still using them in this day and age, like you're going to piss off your consumer a lot more than like you would have done like way back in the day. So thinking about like how you can actually sell your product, like do you actually need a real sale? Like is there a way that you can create levels of like your most intense users, giving them a particular sale that is only on email or only on text, versus like putting it all over the internet and then like potentially pissing people off when they realize that you just raised the prices a little bit last month in order to make up for the fact that you were gonna, put them on sale for Black Friday.
Yeah, I s that reminds me of a Threads post that I saw, like, the other day where it was like a graphic where it showed, Monday, the price is
Mm,
49.99,
mhm.
Tuesday, 49.99, Black Friday, 49.99, and then underneath, 59.99, and it's crossed out, where it just shows, like, that's actually what it cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say my friend has been really wise to that for Prime Days, where
Mhm.
whenever a Prime Day is coming up, he'll look at the exact thing on Amazon about a week or two before,
Mhm.
and then just analyze all of the sales to see what actually is a sale on the original item or what just looks like a sale because of the way they do the price anchoring and
Mhm.
the visualization of all of that on Prime Day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's super important. I mean, Amazon, like I was saying, about like the Shopify topic where it's like they're, slowly creeping in on Amazon owning, Black Friday. Like the fact that Amazon doesn't really seem to care very much about like the consumer, where it's like they have, this like price gouging that has been happening. You have when, they're selling dupes, the fact that, Amazon is starting to learn which products people buy the most so that they can create their own white label products and bring them in house. And so that they get that money instead. Like, I think more and more people are kind of getting pissed off at Amazon for all these things that have been going on. Whereas, like, they don't feel like they're necessarily saving money or like, now it's like, mostly a convenience thing, like but then people are starting to realize, like, do I actually need that to arrive the next day, or can I just wait, a couple days that it would take, buying it from somewhere else? Or should I just go to the store and, like, buy it instead of, what you were talking about earlier, Amanda, just as a convenience thing?
Yeah, but I wonder though, like, I feel like it's not so much anti-consumer from Amazon, it's more of just like a Amazon being so ruthlessly focused on making money
Mm,
that where I would argue they are for the consumer, because that makes it sound like, "Oh, Amazon does wonderful things for people." I don't even mean it like that. But what I mean is, like, there are some things that I consistently buy on Amazon because they cost so much less, and this is top of mind too because I just bought some. I bought some acetaminophen on Amazon this morning for $4, and that same bottle would have cost me at least $12 at a Walgreens. And also just how,
yeah.
like, the returns are easy, like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no excuse to not
Mhm,
do
mhm,
it,
mhm.
right? They're
Yeah,
so
yeah.
easy to do, but I feel like it's more of like the ruthlessly focused on growth and making money.
Yeah, I think there's a difference for me
Mhm.
between
Mhm.
Walgreens versus like a small brand that's like trying to
Yeah.
sell
Yeah, that's true.
direct. So that's where kind of like the
Yeah.
difference is for me. And that's where it seems like Shopify is starting to like make up the difference. Because it's like at least for me and like my thinking, it's like I go, most of the smaller brands, small businesses, I'm expecting to buy them through like Shopify and not necessarily like Amazon. And I wonder if that's like a thing where it's like,
Wonder.
Shopify doesn't really get involved in like having their like white label or like, making sure that they're the ones warehousing the product to like make sure that it gets to you faster. That's the one thing I would say that like Amazon has like, well, pretty much every company beat, right? Is like the
Yeah.
logistics of like now they're starting to keep some products in warehouses close by so that like it gets to you faster. So that's where it's like that upside for sure, I think is like
Yeah.
amazing of Amazon.
The returns is definitely the upside for me, especially when it comes to products where if I'm going to their website and I don't see just a lot of either credibility about the product, number one, or if their return policy seems fishy or anything like that, buying a similar product or similar brand on Amazon, having that brand protection around returns, I think is just super, super important. But that being said, I feel like a lot of brands now are getting around that, partnering with companies like Loop, where they make returns even
Hmm.
easier. And that is actually something that has started to get into my consumer psyche as well. Is like, hey, if a brand that I shop with that is on Shopify or somewhere else is actually partnering with a good logistics platform or anything good for returns back, it makes me much more likely to consider purchasing, knowing that it's an option at the end of the road.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool. Let's move on to the next topic. So I wanted to talk about Stripe's Black Friday mini city ad, which was like such an amazing way to like show off the different companies that Stripe works with and like that are in the like, tech ecosystem. So basically Stripe created a live stream miniature city 8 feet in diameter with 15 buildings, 8 motorized elements like trains, blimps, and 100 plus figures that was operated by a 24/7 crew of model makers during the weekend. So basically, you could tune in to the live stream and just see them building it out during those like 24 hours. It was built entirely by hand using paper, foam, cardboard, and acrylic paint. And part of what like really stuck out to me is this whole idea of what we've been talking about here previously is the craft versus like AI, where it's like there's a bunch of companies that are kind of putting a stake in the ground of like, we want to focus on craft, on like how things are made, on being human made, right? So we've previously talked about the Wallace and Gromit and Barber partnership, Apple TV creating the logo from glass. And now we have Stripe kind of, creating this and using that as a way to bring attention not only to Stripe, but all the companies that are using Stripe. One of the things that really stuck out to me too was the fact that like we've already seen that Stripe cares about that because they have like Stripe Press, so that they're creating books that appeal to like their consumer and using that as a way to support the arts, right? They're doing it in conjunction to like the Stripe business itself. This is year 2 that they've done this. Last year it was all online of like building the little city digitally, and this time they're like, let's make it bigger. Let's build it IRL. And one of the things I was thinking is like, what are they going to do next year, right? Like, could they potentially create some sort of like Christmas market or like an experiential like marketing experience, like at a mall, right? That was like something I saw one year done by like Hello Sunshine. They brought like all the books that they sell and like put them all together into like the store, right? So it was like just a pop up. Did you guys see the live stream?
Just highlights. It looked super, super cute. I actually didn't know, or maybe I just forgot that they did this last year too, but it's super cute.
I didn't actually see the live stream, but I saw so many people tweeting about it,
Hmm.
just tweeting when they found their own companies in
Hmm.
it, and kind of like screenshotting the different ways that their companies were showing up. What I thought was really cool, kind of like you mentioned, is that it wasn't just, hey, here are my customers, but from what I remember, Crumble Cookies was
Hmm.
like a food truck type thing, and they had different companies in the context of where they were. It almost kind of reminded me of The Sims or something like
Hmm.
that, where you're in this almost miniature world and you're just looking to see how these things that you're really, really familiar with, how they show up in this world, how they engage in
Hmm.
this world.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out beyond like the idea itself was like that there was that little like nudge of surprise for like the companies that were featured, because it didn't seem as if like Stripe was like, hey, you're going to be featured in this. It was like, no, you kind of go, you pay attention, you search around for things. So this kind of like harkens back to what we've been talking about like Easter eggs and having people engage with like what you're creating and making them go in search of like your company, right? So I saw a bunch of like the companies themselves and like employees at the companies, showing the photos of like their company being there. So it's like you're getting all this engagement because like people have that surprise and like whimsy of seeing their company featured, but then also how they were featured, right? Like the fact that it's like a little food truck, right? That it's like it still makes sense for like what it is. There were a few of them that were like, coming soon for like companies that are just being built right now and that are growing. So it's like it really shows the thought that was put into it that really correlates with how the real world businesses are doing themselves, right? They even had like TBPN featured as well, right? So it's like all these things that were kind of like inside jokes for people that really know. And then those people then got to share that content of saying like, hey, did you notice this? So it's like, I mean, for me, it was like all day. I just kept seeing like little, photos of the different companies, but then also like the additional context from the people that like know, right? And getting that engagement for themselves. So that's like a really smart way of getting people to play along with you by like wanting to share your content, but then using it to kind of promote themselves in a way.
Yep,
um,
absolutely. And we all are in marketing, we're kind of familiar with just how much money you have to spend in B2B, just
mhm.
from the context of driving demand, from the context of the ads that you have to pay in order to get good CPLs and good decision makers in the door and all of that stuff. And so I feel like something like this, where you have a one-time investment and then the rest of it is just a lot of organic marketing and earned
Mhm.
marketing from your customers, I feel like is just a brilliant play. And of course, I'm recognizing that Stripe has the brand, has the money. They're, similar to Ramp, they're playing a very different ballgame than probably a lot of B2B companies. But similarly, I think one of the lessons about just putting your customers in the spotlight is that a lot of your customers will then extend the reach and extend the shelf life effectively of your single investment in paid activation.
Yeah, definitely. To your point, Kushan, just like Ramp, right? Like these are two like fintech businesses that are, would usually be boring type, like they just do like commercials and stuff. And I think when the Ramp experiential marketing thing happened, what I had kind of compared it to was like they could have just done the easy thing, like doing a Super Bowl ad, right? And spent the money that way. But what made it unique is that we know they have money, right? But instead of defaulting to like the easiest way to spend money, they're like, well, what can we do with this amount of money that would be interesting and get us more attention than just, the regular like Super Bowl ad? And I think that that's similar to what Stripe did here, where they're just like, yeah, we could just do, the boring stuff. I mean, we saw, right, like Coinbase did the like Super Bowl ad like 2 years ago. And like, do I really think that like affected them or brought them new leads? Sure, it might have introduced more people, like did the brand awareness, but like I really think that the Ramp, experience and now this Stripe thing, made more people curious as to like what the brand does and what they're going to do in the future, just because like this was so unique and it like stands out for that reason.
Mhm. I think what also stands out to me is just how human it is. You know,
Mm,
model makers. I think they had professional model
yeah.
makers, right? It
Hmm.
wasn't even just like it wasn't even like just volunteer employees. It was
No.
actual model makers
Yeah.
who like this is what they do,
Uh-huh.
people building it. And it's the kind of thing that like it's just very human. Like
Hmm.
you can appreciate the craft of it, all the details, and really marvel at like, wow, people really thought of this. I mean, for some reason it made me think about, but I think it was Pepsi who did like an AI generated ad.
Well, so
Like
Coca-Cola did their
was it
Christmas.
Coca-Cola
Yeah,
then?
yeah.
Yeah, it was that.
Yeah. I think what we talked about that here as well, but what stuck out to me about that was that it wasn't the CEO, but like I guess like their marketing person was like, Well, the cat's out of the bag. Like, we're not putting AI, back. People are just going to use it. So we might as well just use it to create like the Christmas ad, which to me kind of showed that like they just don't care to like keep the
Yeah, yeah,
integrity of their brand. Because the thing is like, if we really think about it, I'm sure Stripe uses AI. It's a tech company, right?
yeah,
But do they have
right.
to use it for this? Like it's the fact that
Exactly.
they chose to, bring the human element into it and show like these are the companies we work with that we're proud to work with, like, and we're highlighting them and their business and like the human side to it. We get real makers to make this thing instead of creating it. I guess they could have doubled down on the digital version that they did last year. Like, oh, we, vibe coded this like new city. And instead they're like, no, let's focus on doing an actual city with actual humans making the thing instead of using AI to like make it easier for us.
Yeah,
And
100%. So well said.
And there's two sides of the AI coin too, where one is efficiency, and I think to your point, Amanda, there are a lot of opportunities to be more efficient, especially when it comes to marketing and especially when it comes to advertising at scale. But there is also just so much value in good, hard things that
Hmm.
take time and take a lot of energy and that you can't really do. I don't think there's any way Stripe could have done this efficiently. It took a lot of work to not
Hmm.
only do the live stream, but do the planning, figure out the model making, all of that stuff. And I think it stands out partly because of that too,
Hmm.
because so many things are focused on efficiency and focused on being done quickly. When you see things that take a lot of work, that take a lot of thought, and that especially have a lot of tangible impact in the real world, then you definitely admire those more from an activation perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think also just going off that, Kushan, is the fact that they live streamed it, right? So many companies these days are let's talk about like the launch video, right? They're putting together like a very neat, like shortened video, and they're like, no, we're going to show you the entire process of what it is to build this thing and show you what that looks like. And I think um, that also added to the spectacle because it's like, oh, you get to see it happen in real life and then see how long it actually takes and how intricate it like actually is, and that like it made me marvel at like wow, humans can actually do this. I mean, you see it right with like movies. I mean, that's kind of what it made me think about. I was like, oh, like a little city, like how you saw in like Back to the Future, or they built like the city and like the diorama and stuff. But I guess I just generally wouldn't have had context of how long it actually takes to put that all together. So seeing the like live stream version of it, of like you see the little, them kind of with their hands, like putting it all together, made me marvel even more. And then respect Stripe even more for being like, no, we're gonna focus on the craft of this. So it's like really making Stripe as a company stand out as like a company that cares about like craft and detail and being good at like what they do. Instead of like now I kind of just see Coca-Cola as like, oh, we don't care. It's just slop. Which
Right.
is kind of what soda is, right?
It's true. No, you're gonna buy us anyway. Let's be real.
Exactly, right?
To that point, though, if they built the mini city and didn't live stream it and just was like, "Hey, look at it. We made this from
Hmm.
scratch," the magic would kind of be lost. You'd be like, "Wow,
I
that's
think
really
so.
cool,"
Hmm.
and then you'd
And
shrug
then
and
you
be
just go
like, "I guess
away,
it took a
you
long
know?
time." Yeah.
That's very true. Like if they had just kind of, done it and then shared even just a
Yeah.
time lapse, like you still the joy of it would have like gone away, or like the whimsy of like them
Yeah.
actually doing it and you kind of just being able to like chill while it's happening. I thought the other thing too is the fact that it happened over Black Friday, where it's like, you're not you kind of just have things in the background happening, right? You have like the Macy's Day Parade and like,
True. That's
you can just kind of
true.
have it going on and it's not something that like you have to feel like you pay attention to.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point because this is making me so sad that I didn't watch it
Yeah.
live streamed. I'm like, "Man."
Yeah.
My one wish, and I don't actually know, maybe Sonia, if this is possible, is it would have been cool to interact with the companies. I think for the most part,
Mm,
they appeared kind of as billboards or action
mhm,
figures. But it'd be cool if you were to be able to go into Stripe City and you could click on like a lovable or something, and it would, allow
mhm.
you to create something like that. I'm guessing at some point that also probably would be a whole different conversation about who do they
Yeah,
prioritize for
right?
those experiences. But I think like the idea of uh, I'm almost like thinking of a world where Stripe City could almost be some sort of like RPG game, and you're
Yeah, literally a video
walking
game where you just
around
go
and interacting
play.
with Stripe brands and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm sure Patrick Carlson has better ideas than I do for Stripe City.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, next year we'll see the Stripe City video game, you know? That could be a lot of fun. Cool. So, lessons here is that kind of like the ramp thing is that B2B doesn't have to be boring. Like I'm so excited for more people to kind of pay attention to how they're marketing themselves and the businesses that they work with, that it's not just about, buying ads or building SEO and all these things that like we're already doing. I think people are wanting novelty and are looking for it. So companies that have the money like start thinking about how you can differentiate yourself versus your competitors. Even with like the Ramp doing their experiential marketing thing, like this is so different that like we're talking about them in the same space, but they're still so different and unique that it makes me, look at each company individually. Whereas, like, we've talked about this with like the launch videos. It was like the first couple, companies that did it, it was like, oh, yay, novelty. And then now it's kind of like, oh, well, it's just the trend. Everybody's kind of jumping in on it and it's not unique anymore. So that's something for like marketers keep an eye out for. It's like, what can you do that's new for like your company, and then like what also makes sense, right? Because this makes sense for Stripe, right? Where it's like these are all the consumers that we work with, similar to the Shopify, right? With working with TBPN, it's like we're bringing attention to our merchants and the people that we work with, and it's not just about the company itself.
So Stripe, I think, really shifted the world upside down. And speaking of the upside down, I was
That's a good transition.
so yeah, I was over Thanksgiving weekend watching season 5 of Stranger Things. So I won't spoil anything in case there are people watching this podcast or
Yeah.
listening to it that haven't seen it yet. But what was really interesting is they had a lot of advertising for their partnership with Target. And I think in a normal world, I would be very excited about, Stranger Things having a brand partnership. For context for everyone else, they basically have just vintage props, a lot of 80s type products, merchandise, things that are exclusively bought at Target. And it was like basically they also built a Target that was similar to the 1980s, um, I think in LA as well. And it was a really just interesting decision, I thought, by Target to have that brand partnership in the first place. I think Target in general is one of those brands that is struggling to differentiate. It's between Walmart, where you go for value, and then Amazon, where you go for efficiency. And, Target is somewhere in the middle. I get that this campaign was just a little bit more of a spark, but I just thought it was really strange. I don't feel like a lot of people who watch Stranger Things are going to like run to Target for merch, number one. But number two, I think it also doesn't really honor what the goal of going to a Target is. You're looking for practical, you're looking for emotional comfort. A lot of the times when you have these brand partnerships that are associated with TV shows, I know like Wicked did a ton of this as well when it first came out. Um, they're kind of what makes most sense to me is when it's infused into products that you already used. So like I love the fact that Wicked, there was dishwashing liquid and Tide Pods and things that were branded green and pink because those are things that you would normally buy. And yeah, I just don't know if this really resonated with me as much in terms of brand partnership. I also know multiple people who went to Target and had no idea this was happening. So I'm kind of curious if it
Yeah,
even
I was one
really
of those
hit the ether.
people. When you brought up this topic, I was like, "What? They're doing a partnership?" But then I saw the commercial and I was like, "Oh, okay, so I guess this is what it's supposed to be." But yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what like the overlap is or like who the target customer is for this. One thing I think that Target has done well previously is to have those partnerships, right? They're still doing the one with Chip and Joanna Gaines, right? For like their kitchen and like homeware stuff. They did the Chrissy Teigen one, for like kitchen stuff. So they've had partnerships like this before. And then they also do like work with like designers, right? Like I've seen, a few designers. I think it was like Diane von Furstenberg, like she did a fashion line with Target, right? That as a strategy, a marketing strategy for Target is like doing brand partnerships makes sense overall. But there's usually a target, customer that you have in mind, right? So for this, it's like, what sorts of products are you creating? Like, are you trying to hit on the 80s nostalgia a bit? Are you trying to like, create just like stuff for people to like bring into their house?
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where it runs flat for me.
Totally. And I also feel like it's one of those things where the 80s nostalgia is part of the entertainment value of it. And especially for kids, they really love seeing the story, seeing what a different time period looked like. And I don't know how much of the 80s nostalgia translates into consumerism. That is
Hmm.
like kind of a question I had as it related to a lot of this stuff. What I thought was actually really interesting as I was watching the show, I pay for the Netflix with ads because I pay for like 10 other streaming services. But the ads that I got were all for normal products where it was like Discover, Gatorade, and they were like, oh, products that have been popular since the 80s. And it just seems like every product is trying to find its connection back to Stranger Things in some way. But I,
Hmm.
I thought those were interesting because, again, those are like normal products that
Yeah.
you otherwise would never really associate with the 80s.
Huh. I think that's interesting. I've been looking at Target's merch page for Stranger Things. They have, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, but they also have several food products. Doritos. They're just Doritos, but it has a Stranger Things logo on it. They have a Demogorgon Crunch cereal. It looks kind of 80s. They have a Stranger Things Eggo waffle. They're strawberry waffles. And then they do have like kind of a retro looking Doritos bag. So they have two kinds of Doritos. One is just regular nacho cheese Doritos with a Stranger Things logo like on the corner. And the other one is the classic Doritos logo, like the one that was in the 80s.
Hmm.
They also have Gushers and Fruit Roll-Ups. They have Cheetos, but the Cheetos can looks doesn't look it doesn't look retro to me. But
Yeah.
it's funny, I didn't know that Stranger Things and Target had a partnership, but there was another kind of some more obscure partnership that I did know about because a friend told me about it. And it's with the shoe store Aldo.
Hmm.
Aldo. Um,
Although, yeah.
they have Stranger Things shoes. It's like it's heels. So like
Hmm.
and it has like a little charm on the side. It has a Stranger Things logo, has like a Demogorgon mouth. They're like black heels with a Demogorgon mouth on it. And
Saying.
it's very interesting, right? And it makes me think like maybe the person they're going after or their demographic is the suburban mom. Because who else do you know shops at Aldo?
Hmm.
Do you feel like you would, or
I mean,
do you
you're a
feel like
suburban mom,
the Target
Amanda.
one,
Would you
yeah,
buy
do you feel like
that?
the Target one speaks to you?
um, a little bit, yeah. I happen to not be a huge Stranger Things fan. I mean, the Aldo shoes, I do think they're kind of cute in a way that's like, oh man, if I were a fan, I would totally want these. And for the snacks at Target, like I want the retro looking Doritos. But I love Doritos. Doritos, please sponsor us and send
I
us
know,
free Doritos.
right?
It
Yeah.
does make me think though, and clearly, Target spent a lot of money on this, but the way we think about brand activations for startups and smaller companies, you really what you're trying to do when you get a partnership or when you create a bundled product or anything like that is you want to get people who are outside of the Venn diagram, basically. For example, people who are fans of both products, and ideally product one wants to get other people who are not on product one from the other side. Product two wants to get the other people there too. And so for Target, I think the interesting thing is like who the overlap to me just feels like such a flat circle. Like I can't imagine that a lot of people who are Stranger Things fans are like going to not going to be familiar with Target. So I'm just curious if my calculus on brand partnerships is very different from the way that retail giants and people who have a lot of money and a lot of brand recognition and brand affinity think about it. Like to me, it doesn't help me associate Target any differently. And
Mm.
so I'm curious if that was even their intention. Maybe it wasn't.
I think the thing for me is what I would expect from brand partnerships is like something unique that you wouldn't be able to get from either, brand itself, right? It's like you need both of them to be together and to like work together to come up with like new ideas. And this doesn't do that for me. It's just like, well, they would have had Stranger Things toys and t-shirts and hats anyway, So like what's different about it? What's like unique? Because I can get, I probably can't get this specific merch, but I can get similar merch at other stores. So that's where it's just like, well, what are you bringing that's new to the deal that makes me interested in like what you're doing? And everything you mentioned is like, well, but like the chips are still the same, I guess, if you really care about the logo, but that's just going in the trash anyway. The toys like are toys. So that's where it's a miss for me. It's like it doesn't really seem as if there was thought behind it of like let's create something new that you can only get here, which is funny because it's like one of the things that like Target has been doing that has actually been getting me to spend money is creating new versions of books that are just Target specific, right? So they'll do like anniversary releases for like books that have been published already, that you can only buy at Target, right? It's like I could buy that book everywhere else, but not this version of it, right? So it's like they are putting thought behind other things that they're doing and other partnerships. So why not this? Like it
That's a
just seems
good
like a
point.
cash grab.
No, that's a good point, and it's also, like, when you watch Stranger Things, and if you see Target in the background or they're at a Target, I don't know, I assume Target's featured, you don't go like, "Oh, yeah, remember in the '80s, we were all at Target?" Like,
Yeah.
there's also, like, kind of like the inverse of that, right? There isn't really a nostalgic connection when you look back on it, and
Hmm.
I guess, it's now that you're talking about, like, what is the unique thing that when they come together, what's the unique thing they bring forth? If anything, maybe the Aldo partnership was
Hmm.
more unique, right?
Oh
Because
yeah,
it's
because where are you
because
gonna get
it's
those shoes from?
exactly, only Aldo has those shoes, and,
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know how many people who are listening, right, like, who shop at Aldo, but I think they're fairly known for having, pretty comfortable dressy shoes,
Hmm.
like, sensible dressy shoes. So, there's a little bit of that, and so if you already hey, suburban mom, right? I'm
Yeah.
already thinking, like, I know Aldo makes decently comfortable shoes, and if I'm a huge Stranger Things fan, yeah, I want these cute black heels with, like, red
Hmm.
details because I love Stranger Things. Like,
Hmm.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah. One other thing that they could have done is gone the experiential route, right? Where it's like, let's design a Target store that's exactly as it was in the 80s. And then you come
Yeah.
visit that. And it's like, this is the stuff that you could purchase here. And then at the end, you have purely a like Stranger Things merch, section of like, you go through the whole process and you can buy the stuff, right? And then you can also purchase the Stranger Things like merch. That would have made more sense because it's like, oh, I'm experiencing it in a different way. This way, it's like, oh, it's kind of in the store, and if you see it, you see it. But most people apparently, I mean, I didn't see any of this when I went to like Target, and I, pretty much go through most of the sections because with kids, it's like you want to. Target's like a place we go to spend time, like just to walk around, give them fun stuff to do. Um, and that would have been cool. I would go to like a Target 80s, store and like shop through that and see like what that looks like. But
It's true.
yeah.
I would too.
And I think to your point, Amanda, Aldo, part of why it works is you only go there for shoes. Like,
Mhm.
and if you think about just brands where there's very strong task-oriented behavior, you're only going to an Aldo for a separate reason than you're going to like an Amazon. Aldo, you need to buy shoes, and you're kind of already a very high intent, behaviorally targeted customer when you go on that site. And I think part of the challenge with Target is that you can go to Target for you can go to Target to spend time, like like Sonia
Mhm.
said, which is funny. And I remember. I think this was a couple years back. Read this book. Is by this environmental psychologist, Paco Underhill, and the book was called Why We Buy. And in the book, he talks a lot about billboards and how billboards, when they're in these conference rooms and advertising executives are looking at them, they get rated really, really high, and people feel really good about them. And then as soon as you put them out in the wild, I live in San Francisco, so I feel like I see tech billboards everywhere I go.
Yeah.
As soon as you put them out in the wild, there's a ton of statistics about how I think only 12% of people who view something in they like did a test in a high traffic area, only 12% bother to see it. And part of like his hypothesis is, hey, like if you're in a high traffic area and you're headed somewhere, like, you're not thinking about this stuff, and really even the awareness window is maybe 2.9 seconds. And I feel like Target is the epitome of one of those places where there is no singular task oriented behavior you can get around. And so it's really, really hard to uh, center a reason for people to go to Target, or for people to go to Target for one thing. And I think part of the reason why the advertising worked for Netflix is, if you're watching the show already, number one, you're a Stranger Things fan. Number two, you're like thinking about Stranger Things,
Mhm.
you're not thinking about, you know, cleaning products and stuff to get for your babies and all of that stuff.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I think a lot of that plays into it as well.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think another thing here actually is knowing that, this was like, kind of creator or whatever. Like this is one of the examples of like um how they spent the money wrong in my opinion, right? Like we were just talking about earlier with like Stripe doing this like unique experience and getting more, eyeballs from it because of the idea was so unique. And this I feel like didn't hit with Target. It's not about the amount of money you spend. Clearly, it's more about like the idea and the novelty and like what people kind of associate with like the brand and like the partnership that is coming from it.
I agree with you that they should have absolutely done something immersive. And I feel like maybe they did somewhere, but even within Targets, if there was like even if one of their products was immersive, or if it was like a cool product that you could only get in a Target that wasn't,
Mhm.
branded Doritos or something like that, I think that could have been a better reason to get more eyeballs on the partnership itself, and then maybe ladder into other products and stuff that they buy.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
for sure.
there's a way they could have done that pretty simply and at
Mhm.
scale. Like, I mean, I love Sonia's idea, right? It's fully immersive, but they could have even just taken one aisle in the back of the store
Mhm.
and put all the merch and Stranger Things themed stuff there, and then made that aisle the 80s aisle. Like
Mm.
there's a way they could have done it in like many, many cities where it doesn't necessarily have to be a really expensive activation. It's just rearranging some things temporarily.
Yeah, I
Totally.
think part of it though for me is you're talking about scale and I'm talking about what's unscalable, right? And it's like what we're
Mm,
seeing with tech companies, it's like they're doing the unscalable stuff, right? Ramp did the experiential marketing, Anthropic and like Meta have the pop-up stores that they've launched in New York, right? And those are getting attention because of the novelty, right? Whereas this kind of like has lost attention or I didn't even know about it until
Yep.
like Kushan mentioned it. Um because it doesn't seem that out of the ordinary for, like, what they would do, you know? So if, like, they had taken a store in, like, New York or, like, LA, because there are lots of those stores here, where it's like you just convert one and you just for that activation, use it for that, that would have gotten them more attention than what this did.
Or at least even having things like limited edition collectibles would have been cool. And the McDonald's and all these places, they get a lot of momentum from that too. In my
Mhm.
opinion, one of the best marketing activations in history was Willy Wonka with the five golden tickets. Like that did so much for brand awareness, so much for engagement with the fact, like all the spies were interested. That's the kind of magic you want to create with this
Exactly.
brand
Yeah.
activation.
Exactly, right?
Now, Willy Wonka, brilliant marketer.
Oh, of
He
course, of
captured a
course.
lot of the elusiveness, the
Huh.
mystique,
Uh-huh.
the yeah, he knew how to make people talk.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
And
true,
yeah,
but it was, like, actually, like, a cranky old man, but, like, presented himself, like yeah.
cranky old man playing 4D chess.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, part of the mystique or, like, what they're creating, the different types of flavors and what happens, yeah, yeah. A good lesson for all marketers to think about for
Be
their companies.
be like
Uh,
Willy Wonka.
yeah, exactly. Awesome. Do you wanna head into takeaways?
Yeah, so we talked about Black Friday, people are spending way more, but have way worse credit scores and have terrible debt. So, what's the takeaway for marketers? How can you exploit that, right? No, here's an optimistic interpretation. You only live once, right? Fear of missing out, YOLO, FOMO. Maybe as a marketer, how can you think about the experiences you can deliver where people really feel like they can't miss out,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, mine kinda ties into, Shopify and, like, the ads that they did that day where, they felt it was more important to put the limelight on their merchants and, like, what people could, buy that's unique and different. I think, more marketers need to think about how they can differentiate themselves from all the other stuff that's out there, in order to make your offering or your product more unique, in order to find your target customer. Because your target customer is not gonna blink an eye at having to, spend money to buy your product because they love it so much. So it's like really honing in on that and like finding who wants to purchase your product, regardless of whether they can pay for it in 30 days or not.
Um, Yeah, I can share two that came out of this conversation. One is just find ways to make your customers market for you, like really happy customers that are spotlighted, appreciated, valued will really extend the shelf life of not only your marketing activations, but really extend the value of your brand for a lot lower cost. So if you can get to a place where you're really striking organic reach, that's incredible. And then just think about the goals of your customer as they're interacting with your brand. I think that was the big takeaway for me with Target is if your customer is doing a lot of different things, your job is to figure out how to make them care at that moment in that time.
Another takeaway for me for the Stripe activation was thinking about where your company kind of stands in terms of the craft and like making things versus like AI. The companies that have been most interesting lately have been the ones that like have, defaulted to wanting to create things that are unique and like that are special, and that aren't being created by other companies, right? Apple creating the logo in glass and using prism to create, the lights makes people think about, Apple creating amazing content. Stripe, doing this, city, also brings into, light their Stripe press and that they care about art and creating like actual things, and those are the type of companies that you want to associate with. And then the fact that, trust, dependent businesses like in fintech, healthcare and infrastructure, you got to start thinking about how to make things more human, like how to be more unique because, so many people are just bored with, normal ads and billboards and commercials on TV that like that's not really getting people's attention anymore. You need to think about how to place your, or, whatever you're creating or a new idea of like how it still kind of relates to what you're building, right? Because Stripe, it's not random that they created this city, right? It still very much has to, deal with their brand. But what are those types of things that you can use for your brands that like make sense in order to get more attention?
Absolutely. And I also think on top of being a marketing tool, it's a recruitment tool. Like
Hmm.
people want to work at brands that do these really cool things. And so that in itself is good ROI.
Yeah, definitely. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Kushan. Where can people find you?
Of course. I am on Twitter. It is my name at, or sorry, do we call it X? Twitter.
Twitter's
Twitter's fine.
fine. We're going
uh,
down on that ship.
at a Kushan shop. And then I am starting to write again towards the end of this year. So you can find me on Substack as well. And it is going to be linked to my Twitter.
Awesome. Exciting. I want to read what you're writing.
And then you could follow me at Amanda Nat on wherever, and especially on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And then you can follow me at Sonia Bashez everywhere. And then the podcast at Meme Team Pod on YouTube, and then Meme Team Podcast on Spotify and TikTok. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.